Hello everyone, we continue exploring the capabilities of our MES, Manufacturing Execution System software, and today we'll also briefly touch on CAD, Computer Aided Design. So I'm logging into our system as Bill, who in this case is also the administrator. Let's focus on the operations function. This is probably one of the most important functions in the production process. It is here that we define the entire production chain. This is where we create what are called process steps. What is a process step? Simply put, it's a stage where the product is improved, enhanced, or supplemented. A step that gradually transforms what we are producing into a finished product. From the very beginning of a production up to the final step, the item remains an unfinished product. So each production step is a stage where either an operator or a robot, if the process is fully automated, adds something to the product. Let's take a simple example, the production of a stool. I'm going to add one process step somewhere in the middle of the production chain. Let's assume that at this stage I already have the legs, the crossbars, and the seat prepared for this stool. Here I'll show you the drawing of our stool. Let's assume that every operator on the production line has access to this kind of drawing. We can see here a drawing or a computer-aided design. I actually put it together quickly myself. Let me pause here for a moment and show you how I did it. To be honest, I didn't want to design the stool from scratch, so I borrowed it from GrabCAD. Let me quickly show you how I did that. I already have the GrabCAD community open. I go to the library, log in, search for stool and find this drawing. Then I download it. And yes, thanks to Alex who created this model. Here we have the assembly file and I open it in SolidWorks. This is what the stool looks like. Here we have a feature called drawing, make drawing from assembly, which allows us to generate a technical drawing. I select a basic template and place 3 projections onto the sheet. It's important to mention that I follow good practice when placing projections. I call it the boat rule, a simple way to understand how projections should be arranged. Let me explain it using a real object, for example, my phone. If I'm looking at the phone from the front, the same side you're seeing, that's the front view. If I want to show the top view, I don't place it above like this. Instead, I place it below. And if I want to show the bottom view, I don't place it below, I place it above. So again, this is the front view, this is how we show the top, and this is how we show the bottom. If I want to show the left side, I turn my phone like this. And if I want to show the right side, you will see it like this. This is what we call the projection placement rule or the boat rule. Now I'll arrange all 3 projections on the drawing, add an isometric view, and then include dimensions and annotations. So, this is what I ended up with. The dimensions from the original author are a bit unclear. It's hard to tell whether they are in centimeters or inches. It seems the author didn't focus much on real-world sizing, but for our purposes, that's not important. I'm also not going to fill in the drawing template. I'll save the file both as a SolidWorks drawing and as a PDF. This is the file we'll be working with. Let's assume that this drawing is printed and given to each operator on the production line. So now I have the product, I have the production line, and the next step is to define or program the operations for each operator. For demonstration, we'll do this for 2 operators. Let's say the full production process consists of 9 steps. First, producing the legs, then the crossbars, then the seat. All of this is woodworking. Then assembly and drying, then painting and another drying stage, followed by packaging, and finally, storage. Of course, for something as simple as a stool, this system would be overkill. But if you are manufacturing a complex product with hundreds of production steps, then a system like this becomes essential. Each operator at each workstation would have their own monitor with a dedicated user interface specifically designed for that production step. So now let's assign a production step. I'll assign 2 operations from the middle of the process, assembly and drying. The same approach can be used to define all other operations. But for now, I just want to demonstrate the principle of how operations are created within our system. So I've filled in all the fields and created an operation for Leslie. This operation is called Stool Assembly Process Step 4, which corresponds to the assembly stage. The task here is to glue and connect the parts. In other words, assemble and bond them together. Next, I define the operation goal, what we want to achieve with this step. In this case, the goal is to assemble the stool, glue all components, and prepare it for the next production stage, which is drying. Then we move on to Standard Operating Procedure, SOP. Here we specify safety measures. Use gloves, glasses to protect your eyes, and use everything with caution. After that, I assigned a lot ID, for example ST01, and specify that this is process step number 4. I also provide a description of the lot. This is a wooden stool, oak finish, with a hard seat surface. Additionally, I know that this stool is part of a larger kitchen furniture set, along with its corresponding lot ID. Next, we define operation resources and parameters. For resources, we specify components such as 4 legs or footrests and upper side rails, the structural elements of the stool. Then we set lot parameters. For example, the allowed tolerance for gaps during assembly in millimeters, acceptable glue smudges, and the glue finish. In this case, clear. Once everything is filled out, I save the operation for Leslie, and now we see that the operation has been successfully assigned. Now I'm going to log into the system as Leslie, but before that, I should make sure that Leslie has no additional privileges beyond being an operator. So let's go into system data and verify that. Here I can see Leslie, and he doesn't have any additional privileges, only the operator role. That's exactly what we need. For the next operation, I'll also need another available worker. So I need to hire one more employee for the drying step. Since I'm already here, I'll go ahead and add that employee and assign the operator role. So Leslie remains just an operator. Now I add a new employee. For example, James. James Smith. He will also be an operator. I assign him to the same warehouse and department as Leslie and give him only operator privileges. And let's save the changes we made. Now we have a new worker in the system. Let's assume Bill already had a stack of CVs on his desk and was ready to hire someone for this position. Since I've now added James to the system and assigned him to the operator role, he'll be starting his work tomorrow. His task will be to dry the stools. I'll assign that operation to him shortly, but first let's see what Leslie sees when he arrives at work. We've just assigned him the task of assembling stools. So Leslie comes in the morning, logs into the system, and immediately sees what he needs to do: assemble the stools. He has all the required parts, the operation details, and he knows his task is to assemble them. And not only does he have the physical components coming from the previous operator, but he also has the label and barcode associated with the product. Now I'll show you how I generated those labels and barcodes. I log back into the system as Bill, the administrator, and go to Work, Forms, Warehouse, Form, Item Label. Then I use Table Search to find the item, in this case ST01. I select it and click Print. The item label opens in the browser, and I can also print the item barcode, either in a small or large format. Now I log back in as Leslie. Let's say 3 minutes have passed while I've been assembling the stool. I fill in all the required fields, code ID, part description, notice, and I also specify transfer to possession to James. Then I click Done. So within that time, Leslie has already assembled 2 stools and sent them to James for drying. At the same time, Leslie can send a message to James. For example, I write, "Am I assembling the chairs too fast? Do you have enough time to dry them?" I send the message and we see message to James sent. Now let's create a technical assignment for James. I log in again as Bill and go to Work, Operations, Operations create for James, Report to Alex. I assign this as step number 5. And here the task is dry out all connected parts. So I've created a technical assignment for James. His task is drying the stools. Now let's log in as James. He has received a message. We can see message received. This is the message from Leslie. I'll reply to Leslie. For example, "No, it's okay. I'm working very fast." I click Send. Message to Leslie sent. Now we go back to Leslie and confirm that the message has been received. Then we return to James. Here we see his assigned operation. James begins performing his task. As he completes the work, he scans the barcodes, adds his comments, and specifies who he transfers responsibility to for the finished items, the dried stools. He selects transfer to possession to Alex, and then clicks Done. As we can see, the timer has started again. The execution time for each operation is recorded in the database, and James understands that there is no room for delays, especially since Leslie isn't slowing down and continues supplying him with assembled stools. So overall, we've looked at how operations are assigned within the production process, how they are executed, how responsibility is transferred, and how the system motivates workers to complete tasks faster. It's not exactly pleasant to watch the seconds ticking, so naturally you want to stay ahead of the clock. The next operation in the production cycle is also very important: working with applications. But we'll start exploring that in the next episode. And that's all I've got for today. Thank you for joining Laplanda Tech. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you learned something new today, give this video a like and subscribe to learn more from upcoming episodes.